I'm Matt Landau from VRMB, and this is Unlocked, Season 9, Home Runners. Today's interview features Lino Maldonado, who's been in the short-term rental industry for decades. Lino's built and sold and worked with this incredible array of success stories, and we'll go through each of them briefly. But what makes Lino most impressive for me, and what I think you'll be able to discern, is his pattern recognition. Lino sees trends as problems that are just waiting to be solved. And I think each of our listeners could probably apply this style of thinking to your own respective marketplaces. The smaller, the better. In this discussion, we talk about how venture capital is impacting our cottage sector of hospitality, how the property management software and third-party software markets are changing, and most profoundly, we talk about how to adapt to change as humans, entrepreneurs, and really whatever role you associate with in life. A lot of the discussion points are featured in the 2023 Trends Report, which you can access at vrmb.com/trends. And this interview is brought to you by Point Central, the leader in smart home automation, as well as Breezeway, a property care and operations platform. And unlike each episode this season, I don't ask Lino what the phrase home runner means to him, quite simply because I forgot. Instead, I start off by pronouncing Lino's name, what I thought was incorrectly. Lino Maldonado. Is that pronounced correctly?
Yes, sir. It's one of the best renditions I've ever had. I might take you on tour with me.
That sounds like a nice Italian boy.
It is. Yes, sir. Half Italian and Puerto Rican.
Aha, little Puerto Rican. That's what gave me the edge in the pronunciation. So where'd you grow up?
So grew up in the United States. I was born in a little town called Norwich, New York, just north of Cooperstown. And our claim to fame nowadays is the Chobani yogurt factory is all there and has taken ownership of the town, which is phenomenal for that small area. And parents both military, so we were all over the country and into Europe my younger days, and then we moved here to the Destin, Florida area when I was 10, and this is where I've called home since.
Wow. So I'm most interested in the Chobani factory. How did they choose this location, and how does that become synonymous with a community?
Yeah, so, that's a great question. I don't have the specific answer, but I will tell you that it's an upstate New York community with a lot of dairy. So that would be my first guess with yogurt, and then good infrastructure, railroads, and the like to get their product shipped around around the country and the world now. But
So
they
like pretty
literally.
much everybody who lives in town has some kind of interaction with Chobani?
Absolutely. And he is such a great immigration story where he comes to the States with a great idea and a half-baked product and lands there, starts to develop and become extremely successful. Took his company public, but before he did, gave 10% to his employees. And so he made a couple of instant millionaires out of this little small upstate New York town. And then he does everything for the town, right? So new movie theater, infrastructure, schools, education, recreation. He really has given back to the communities and his industry, which is phenomenal. Love to see that.
Where is he from originally?
That's another great question. I want to say Lebanese, something like that, but I would hate to go on record on that piece.
What other companies, Chobani, I think, is a wonderful example of a success story that's just become mainstream and has all the positive vibes still around the brand and, in this case, the founder. I love it when companies are able to reach that size and somehow don't get into like, some kind of scandal.
Yeah, I mean, and when you think about founding principles and who you are as a person before the business, those it seems like that don't lose their way are the ones who stay closest to the basics. And there's a lot of parallels with successful companies, even yogurt companies, and into vacation rentals. And I like to really parallel companies like in hospitality and in fast foods. You got KFC and you got Chick-fil-A. Chick-fil-A does $8 million a year per store, and KFC does about $1 million. Why is that? KFC is open 7 days a week, and Chick-fil-A only six. They're in the same business, but one thinks that they're in hospitality and that the basics are not. They're differentiators. They're the basics. The food should be good. The quality should be good. The employees should be nice. The restaurant should be clean. The extra sauce, if you will, is hospitality.
The extra secret sauce.
Extra secret sauce. Wouldn't it be great if those of us in hospitality could actually have hospitality as the secret sauce? Wouldn't that be great?
It would make us terrific chicken sandwich slingers.
It would.
But I want to stick on this topic, the contrasts between big money and hospitality, which is inherently this human thing. A lot of money has flown into our industry over the last decade, but really the last, I would say, several years since COVID. Mm. And when big money's premise about scale and numbers and speed are compromised in some way, when the premise is challenged, create some big changes oftentimes need to be made. How do you see the intersection of big money and this one-on-one core of hospitality?
That's a great question, Matt. And I'll tell you, with big money comes expectation, right? What is the return on that money going to bring me? Which is really in direct conflict with hospitality. Hospitality is delivering great experiences to other people, and sometimes regardless of cost, right? So I think the challenge bringing big money into the space is you can't lose the hospitality side of the business. And that's a very local, a very one-on-one thing that doesn't always occur in ivory towers.
So first of all, do you think that the amount of money that's been flowing in over the last few years will continue in 2023?
I think it will. I think consolidation will continue. I think you'll see upstart business models continue. I think you'll see variations in our business model continue. The guys at Casago do, I think, an extremely good job in centralizing the headaches of the business, but localizing the business itself, the decisions, the day to day. And that's a challenge with big companies, right? It is that they want to centralize and control everything, and unfortunately, that group at the top is the furthest away from what matters the most, and that's owners, guests, your culture, your interaction with your third party, partners, your vendors, and to me, so yes, I think it'll continue, but I think you'll see it continue to evolve.
And would you say that applies to both the tech side as well as the management consolidation trend?
Absolutely. Yeah. The tech for me is one of those things I'm very passionate about. I'm an operator by trade, but I use tech, I leverage tech, but I don't let tech define who we are as a company. But the blessing and the curse of technology from an operator's perspective is that we finally have good tech, right? Yeah, I think back to when I started in the business in actually July 4th weekend of 1996.
Wow. That was a long time ago, Lino.
I see, when you say it like that, it makes me feel a little old, and I'm just as passionate today, Matt, as I always have been. So thank you for bringing me back down to earth. Yes, I'm getting older, but it's a great space. But the technology just wasn't there to do the things we really needed to do from a hospitality perspective. Well, it is today, but we've got different challenges in tech. So I think you'll see some continued, consolidation. I think you'll see some integration, a lot more integrations than we've ever seen. And I think that's overall a good thing for the space.
So let's talk about your involvement in tech. You also are on the service side. Explain the tech companies that you're involved with so people have some context here.
Sure. So I actually started in, again, July 1996 with with a company called Abbott Resorts. We rolled up the first IPO of a company here in called Resort Quest. Went through several iterations of that, and then we bought the company from Gaylord Entertainment Group in June of 2007. We sold it to Wyndham in October of 2010 to form Wyndham Vacation Rentals North America. And then we ultimately sold that to Vacasa in 2019. I actually decided not to make the transition at that time because I had started working with a company called BeHome247. I was actually their largest customer. I started with them in October of 2010 and started to develop efficiency workflows. And so I'm involved today as a partner and the president of BeHome247, which is a full service operational platform, housekeeping, maintenance workflows, smart devices, locks, thermostats, the like. We've really created an ecosystem of efficiency that really drives your net operating revenue through more efficient processes and automation, and then allows you to spend more time focusing on owner's guests and your culture versus pushing paperwork through departments.
And
So
before you move on, I think it's interesting. A lot of managers find themselves in relationships with service providers. They're like best friends. I mean, one is thriving off of the other. One literally can't do their magic without the other. And it's an interesting line of thought. If you are that property owner or manager or operator, and you are in love with any given tool, there's potentially more kinds of relationships that you can build, almost limited only by your creativity.
that's a very very true statement, Matt. And I'm an operator who has always looked at our vendor network as really partners in our success. I've never been the type of manager that beats up vendors left, right, and center for my own margin or my own, needs. It's really a partnership of success that can go really very long ways. And so I just look at that community differently. And now that I'm on the other side of it, I'm hoping that some of our clients, hear this and go, "Gosh, I shouldn't be so tough on Lino."
That's the real purpose here. You're also involved with OK to Charge, which I love. I put it in the category of advocacy technology, which is a category that I'm basically calling any tool that seems to make for and empower a more responsible professional, and that can be broken down into a number of different layers. But in the end, I find that there are some tools that the managers think are great, the guests think are great, the lawmakers think are great, and in some cases, in the best instances, like noise detectors, for instance, even the anti-short-term rental people think are great. And so this is the category I'm calling advocacy technology. Explain what OK to Charge is and how it fits in there.
Absolutely. So when we looked at EV charging infrastructure, so electric vehicles are really coming at us fast and furious. When you think about the manufacturing space, there is anywhere from 20 to 70% of manufacturing by manufacturer that is going to be dedicated to EV charging or EV cars. And what that's going to do, it's going to put more of those vehicles on the road in a very short period. They're saying by 2030, and it's going to make them bring down the cost so more people will be able to afford and utilize those vehicles. Problem is the infrastructure is not ready. And so what we identified as an opportunity to be good stewards of our ecosystem is to get that infrastructure all the way through to what we call the last mile. So when you think about what happens when you go on vacation today, whether it's a hotel or a vacation rental or whatever form of lodging that you choose, you want to drive your EV, but it has to be parked at a bar when you're at home at your vacation home or at a hotel. And so what we wanted to do was bring the EV infrastructure opportunity to that very last mile to give you at home services while you are on vacation. We think it's a space that there's not a lot of folks focused on. We think that it's a very, very necessary space, and we've launched OK to Charge about 2 years ago. We've got Eric Broughton as our CEO. We hired just about a year ago, and he's done a phenomenal job putting the team together and getting the word out that this is an amenity that can be a major differentiator for you and help the environment at the same time.
So, how do you evaluate a company, getting potentially involved with a company? What are the patterns that you look for in terms of something to either create or support?
Yeah, filling a niche. As an operator for as many years as I've been in this particular vertical, I look for problems, and it's a lot how we develop the Be Home platform as well. Is that I would bring Joseph, our founder and CTO, my partner. I would bring him operational challenges, literally everything from maintenance issues, laundry issues, connectivity with smart device issues, and we build and develop products around day-to-day challenges of operators. We like to say, built by operators for operators. And so for me, the first, item that I look at is, okay, what's the niche, what's the need, and then from there, I try to build things or get involved in things that can solve that problem, not just push the problem further down the trough.
Hmm. So, in the case of OK to Charge, the problem or the niche was electric vehicle guests who didn't have homes that could accommodate their vehicle.
Exactly right. Yeah, I'm on
Okay.
vacation at the house, but my car is on vacation at a bar down the street, or a restaurant or a super station or what have you. I'd like my car to be right there with my family.
So perhaps the mega pain in the tech space is pure overload, is pure too many solutions, too many companies offering too many different versions of the same thing and different things.
Mhm.
And operators are simply overwhelmed. And one of my favorite metaphors that you once shared was the leaning tower of tech Pisa. Did I get that right?
You did. Leaning Tower of Tech, and it goes back to, and it's very true. I see it every day. And, that's the blessing and curse I talk about. We've got better tech than we've ever had before in the space. The problem we have today is nothing is connected well or talks well or pushes data two ways. And since I, started as a customer with BeHome in 2010, that's what we were out to solve. I wanted a single ecosystem where all of my widgets, if you will, housekeeping, maintenance, guest services, smart device management, mobile concierge app, all of those things could live in a single point of reference and push information not just to and through each other, but back through to your base PMS system as well. And so we, set out building that ecosystem for that very reason. So that your tech stack today only has to be a PMS and a BHome. That's as complicated as it needs to be. And so we free up time and create more efficiency even in the back end systems, which has been one of our goals.
So do you think the tech landscape how will it look different a year from now?
I think you'll see a lot more consolidation. I think you'll see a lot more PMS companies looking at a sort of a marketplace model for themselves. One of the
Explain what
things
that
that
means.
yeah, so PMSs, there's a lot of great ones, by the way, on the market today, pretty advanced. But historically they'd want to be everything to everyone, so all of your housekeeping and your maintenance and your revenue management and your reservations management and the like in a space, and they looked at third party operators as competitors. My BeHome system has maintenance workflows and housekeeping workflows that are much more broad and detail oriented than most PMSs even provide. And so it's taken several years to come together and say, look, we've got a customer in between us that it should be both of our frame of reference. I don't care how a customer wants to run their business. My goal is to make them successful in doing so. And what we found over the last few years with all of our integrations with, Track and Streamline, LMPM, LiveRes, and many others. I always hate to go through a list like that. That's the,
It's like you got to list all your children.
you got to list them, all your partners, and we've got more than 50 integrations with top PMS providers out there, and I think what has changed dramatically is how we look at one another. Some of the reality is two operators in the same market on the same software in the same sort of with the same portfolio structure are going to run their businesses a little differently. And what we say to our customers is, we don't care if you use our maintenance system or the maintenance system in your PMS. We just want you to have all the tools necessary to be successful at what you're doing. And that has resonated with, the PMS companies, the actual property managers, and of course ourselves. But marketplace, you asked specifically, what that definition would be. I would say that it's a more open API architecture that allows a client to pick a PMS and then pick their partners in success from the vendor network that's out there. I think you'll see a lot more work on that front in the next couple of years.
So that means, if I'm getting this right, that the property manager would log into one overarching platform, and they'd have access to these various third-party tools with two-way communication. So it does check off that all under one roof objective that you talked about earlier.
Absolutely. Yeah. And seamless. So if things are integrated as tightly as most of ours are, you won't even know what platform you're in. You're just getting the data or information or template or whatever it is, whatever department you work in, that you need to be successful in that particular task. And then it flows back into the other system seamlessly.
And what's the likelihood, in your view, of these property management softwares that are leaders and do have great track records and plenty of funding acquiring some of these third-party tools as opposed to just syncing to them? What are the pros and cons there?
Uh, Pros, cons, I think depends on the two companies, right? There's value inherently in a lot of these widgets and partners and single point solutions, if you will. Some I think of the companies that are built purposely to sell eventually are different than the service providers like BeHome that are built to solve problems and serve a purpose. And so I think you'll see some of the smaller companies. You've actually already seen a few that are very purpose built. Rented is a perfect example, just purchased by by TNS. That's a great partnership. It was an open area in their PMS platform, and Rented is a good company that was available to be consumed. I think you'll see more of that in point solutions, and you'll see more partnerships in full platform solutions like BeHome.
Sorry, you had me up until that last point there. How is BeHome a partnership, purely a connected, a two-way connection?
Directly connected, yes.
Got it.
Fully integrated at all the API endpoints.
Got it. Okay, got it. What are your thoughts on this kind of new generation, I'd call it, of property management software? I think of it as property management software light, which is starting to become very popular with a different demographic, primarily those who get started on Airbnb. Most of them have really only started in the last couple of years. These are hosts who get started on Airbnb, are realizing they're good at it. They like it. It's making them money. They want something more robust. And a Track or a Streamline or a LiveRes is like a rocket ship for them. And they just want just give me the Honda that gets me to the supermarket. Do you think that world of property management light in any way will affect the conventional world of property management?
I really don't. I think that there again, to my point about every property manager running their business differently. There's a lot of boutique operators out there that don't need a ton of whistles and bells. They're smaller operators. They really just need reservation data. They don't, in many of them, don't do any revenue management or those other things that more sophisticated operators look at as a foundational component, that is necessary. So I think that you will continue to see boutique operators need, lighter software. But I think that as you scale your business, you will absolutely run into the day where you need a better infrastructure for future growth.
Yeah, that's actually exactly where I was going next. So, like, I'm curious that you are fully aware of this new generation of, they refer to themselves as hosts. It's typically a different crowd than the conventional property management events that I've seen you at. What do you think this new group is doing that the more traditional or established world of managers could learn from?
That's a great question, Matt. So the thing that no matter what your scale, you should really hold on dearly to is your sense of purpose. What are you there to do? And if you're someone who's starting a rental business, whether you're one unit on Airbnb and then you start managing for other owners in the building, you really need to understand what is critically important to the people involved. And I've been in the business over 25 years. The same three things are still the same three things that matter most. Owners want good revenue, right? You have to be at least average, if not better. They want a great relationship with somebody that they know and trust with their asset, and they want somebody that can maintain their property to their level and standard. And no matter what scale that you get to, whether it's 2 units, 10 units, or 2,000 units, if you start missing those boxes, I don't believe you can ultimately be successful long term. So I think to answer your question, you have to identify who you are and what your mission in business is. And there's a lot of companies out there, Matt. You've seen some of the consolidation. They're really just scaling for the sale. They just want to get in, build it to get out. And unfortunately, those type of operators can put a black eye on the industry locally versus somebody who built a business with strong foundational, sort of awareness that are passionate about hospitality in our industry. Those are the people that we really need to help lift up in every local market.
Elaborate on that. How are some of these businesses that are built to scale and sell giving the black eye?
I'll give you one great example. So I'm sitting in a association meeting just a few months ago, and the one of the companies that was presenting to be the on-site rental company for that particular property, first of all, didn't know who I was. That I was sitting there in the audience. They were sitting right behind me, and they were talking about their presentation. And they literally said, the owner of this company literally said, "Well, you don't have to do everything that you promise." And I literally, it's like I wanted to turn around. It's like your kid talking in church. You want to smack them right in the head and say, "Would you wake up? You're gonna hurt us all if you are that short sighted into what we're here for."
So that was an instance of somebody sort of cutting corners in favor of the sale or the scale. And I'm curious because I find myself conflicted because there are also entirely new models that are entering the market that are not the traditional management model. For instance, there's some of these what I refer to as lifestylists. These are people who typically get started on the listing site. They grow, they like it, they build their own properties. They've got several properties that they own. They also manage the property, so they're running on very different terms of their metrics of success. Then you've got the purpose-built development world of people who are coming in and literally building their own inventory from the ground up. That's also a very different business model than the conventional manager. Are these just all people racing for the same pie, do you think? And what are the differentiators between those that will last through the next couple of years?
No, I think there's a couple of different flavors of pie, and from an owner's perspective, we used to categorize our owners, professional, people that are investors, people that are teachers, people that are agnostic. So the owners have different areas of need, right? An investor owner really doesn't care much about knowing you well, managing the property exceptionally well. They just want the return. They want the check. They want it to be bigger every single month and every single year. Professionals might be a little bit more detail oriented in how and who they select to manage their property, and have higher expectations in a broader range of areas. And so I think that the industry is segmented in many different areas, and that's where one software, it's very difficult to be that end all be all for every type of use case. There's companies that have tried it and done well in a segment, but not as well in others.
And before we leave this category of technology and big money, do you think that venture-backed startups, of which there have been tons in the last couple of years, um, will experience a slowdown over the course of the next year or two?
I do. I think that money's getting a little more expensive, obviously, for everybody. So the returns have to be more. They need to be larger and more immediate. There's not a lot of patience in VC money. Ultimately, there has to be profitability and return, or continued consolidation, scale, and up to the next big buyer. So it depends on that game. But I do feel like the models will continue to evolve. I think that local operators, the mom and pop shops, if you will, I think will continue to be successful in their local markets, because they are delivering a necessary product that is not commoditized like a VC company would. It's more passionate hospitality, and I think that will never go away.
It's a pain in a way. It is a pain that they're solving. We are all pains at the end of the day. And now a word from our sponsors. Point Central provides smart property solutions for smart vacation property managers. They help streamline operations, protect the property, and enhance the guest experience using keyless access. Why? Because guests are tired after traveling, duh. And being able to go directly to that property with keyless access instead of stopping at a manager's office, this is no longer a luxury. This is a standard practice. Plus, everybody loves avoiding extra trips due to lost keys, not to mention the constant cost of rekeying. Point Central partners stay aware with an activity log of who enters and leaves the property, which helps keep track of cleaning and maintenance crews as well. You can also gain control of your utility bills with their smart thermostats. Schedule set points so guests won't be able to drastically raise or lower the temperatures, for instance. You can ensure the temperature stays consistent when the unit is vacant. Prevent costly maintenance projects caused by water leaks, mold, or HVAC issues with real-time alerts that allow you to be proactive. Visit pointcentral.com/VRMB to learn more. And Breezeway, whose property care and operations platform helps you coordinate, communicate, and verify the detailed work and deliver the best service experience to your guests. With tools for intelligent task scheduling, quality assurance, real-time work coordination, guest messaging, supplies management, owner reporting, and more, oh my. Breezeway helps thousands of short-term rental managers and hospitality operators increase your operational efficiency and eliminate hours of manual work. This allows you to boost your service revenue. It was created by the founding team of FlipKey, which was since acquired by TripAdvisor, and Breezeway is just elevating the experience at every property they touch. Visit breezeway.io/VRMB and get implementation fees waived. That's a $1,000 value right there. Okay, let's get back to the show. We touched on advocacy technology, but I want to touch on advocacy. It's something I'm very passionate about, something you're very passionate about. I think 2023 is going to be an absolute bloodbath for short-term rental stakeholders who have simply not been proactive enough. Do you agree?
I do. Absolutely, Matt. And unfortunately, with advocacy, it's one of those things that you really don't get involved with until it hits you right between the eyes. And then all of a sudden, it's an emergency. And I've said this before. I live in the Destin, Florida market, so we're prone to storms. I don't use the H word, but weather events, if you will. It's amazing to me how the community of operators post storm come together to rebuild and to help each other, get back on their feet and the like. Why can't we do that before a storm? I'm a huge Buffalo Bills fan, as you know, and we just had this, major issue with Damar Hamlin and the outpouring of love and support for he and his family and sports. The whole sports world came together for Damar over a very serious, on field, heart attack here. Um, but why does it take adversity to pull us all together that way? Shouldn't we do that first so that when adversity hits, we're ready?
I would love to say yes, but the truth is that across the board, the vast majority of people who benefit up and down the scope of size don't participate.
Yep, and that's an issue. A little now, and I think you and I've had this conversation in the past that when you think about the proactive nature of raising funds to keep something from happening versus the reactive expense of trying to get something overturned or reversed, I don't know what the exact number is, but it's got to be 10x or more.
And so, how do you make the business case? Because you do donate a lot of your hard earned money, both as an operator and a vendor, a supplier. How do you make the business case to people that they need to be allocating funds for this in their budget, whether they like it or not?
Yeah. Well, as a supplier, my revenue comes from my clients, my customers. So part of my responsibility is to do everything I can to help them be successful.
There was a wonderful moment several years back. I was at a VRMA fundraiser, and that was actually where I first met Eric Broughton, and he was with the Inhabit group. And suddenly it got to the moment where everyone was being asked for money to donate. And I saw Eric like off in the bushes on the cell phone. I was like, what is that guy doing? Is he like going pee or something? And he was talking to someone. He was like in a very serious conversation. Then I saw him hang up the phone. And then I saw him walk up to the board there and write the biggest check of the night. I think it was $50,000. And I ended up asking Eric on our podcast here who he was talking to and what he was talking about. And he said it was his boss and that he was making the business case for committing funds to this advocacy cause on behalf of each of the companies he represented. Because if he didn't, it could all just be pulled away from you overnight. And he succeeded. But I think more people need to channel their Eric Broughtons.
Well, it's one of the reasons we went after him to bring him into the OK to charge business. He's an advocate of the space. He is obviously someone who is a proactive leader, and somebody who wants to do the right thing, for all of us. And these elected officials at every level, so local, state, and even in DC, are only beholden to their next vote. And so when you start thinking about, and again, back to the proactive nature or reactive nature, look at a lot of your local races where a lot of these local ordinances that are very disruptive stem from, is that a lot of those races are decided by, could be a dozen or 2 dozen votes. And so getting involved locally with your local money, bringing those people to the state level, and then those people into DC proactively is really something we need to do as an industry a much better job with. Get involved early and be ready when the next bad idea surfaces because it's coming.
So you do agree that 2023 is just going to be a whole lot of bad incidents all around. Suddenly everyone's going to get slapped in the face, or however you put it, hit between the eyes. Suddenly we're going to have to react. Could it be too late?
In some markets, absolutely. I mean, look at Hawaii. You've got a small local group that is vocal and they're able to vote. That is in a couple of the markets completely try to shut rentals down altogether. And some in, I mean, there's big issues in California right now. Entire markets are having their permits limited in some cases cut more than in half. These are companies. These are people's livelihoods. These are housekeepers and maintenance, and and great owners that have put a lot of years and sweat and tears into these businesses that literally overnight can be cut in half or forced to close. It's out there and it's happening, and unfortunately, bad ideas spread very quickly to other markets that have similar challenges. And I think part of what we've got to do as an industry is really take ownership of the challenges that maybe we're not 100% responsible for, but we are involved in. And then we get hung with a lot of things that really aren't associated with our industry, but we're the easy target to show immediate action or activity. Like afford. That's exactly what comes to mind. Many of the homes that I've got on 30A with our scenic stays business, those would not be affordable housing opportunities. They're vacation rentals. They were built as such. So there's a lot of work to be done, and I think it starts with education. We've got a lot of people in positions of authority that still look at us or even call us Airbnbs. Aren't you Airbnb? No, we're not Airbnb. We use Airbnb as a distribution tool, but we are professional local management companies, very different than a platform operator.
Mm. And yet, it's like, I think in the big picture of things, if we're saying we're not Airbnb, we're the professionals. It's
Yeah.
like, what does that little singular voice mean if it's not united with all the other little voices that are singing that same tune? It's just a shriek.
Yeah, not as much as it could be, I guess would be my answer. And when I think about the power of bringing property managers together, each of us have owners, right? All of our portfolios are owned by other people, and getting our owners involved, who, by the way, most of them don't have a local vote or voice in these initiatives. So we've got to be their advocates locally. Get them involved, ask them for money so that you can support the right candidates at the local level, and then we push that up and forward from there.
Who do you think should hold the OTAs accountable?
Well, I think to start with, the property managers. I go back to some of my early days, and I was a larger operator with Resort Quest and with Wyndham. So, this will not apply to everyone, but I was one of the first companies to tell Expedia no. I had a great, regional VP sales guy, pop into my office, handed me their new contract. This was years ago. Handed me their new contract and said, "Man, this is it's our new deal, and just need you to sign it, and we'll get you all rock and roll." And I was reading through it as he's talking, and he wants last unit availability. He wants best rate guarantee, including my own website, and a couple of other things in there. And I said, "Hey, thanks, but no thanks. I won't be signing this." And he looked like he saw a ghost. And he's like, "What do you mean? That's our standard agreement. Everybody is signing that." And I said, "Well, you're only 2% of my business, so I'll find that 2% elsewhere and make sure that my website has always got the best deals for my customers." And so that was just one example of holding them accountable to what my business model really was all about. The other piece of that is, think about who is the perfect people to be marketing to for your own company. And it's different in every market. You've got higher end properties, you've got sort of middle of the road, you've got some lower end stuff sometimes. Those are not all perfect for all OTAs. And so you've got to pick your partners and make sure you're managing them, not them managing you.
Who do you think needs to hold the OTAs accountable as it relates to contributing their fair share in regulation?
Well, that's a great question. So again, I'd go back to the property managers as you're negotiating your new deals. That you put in a contribution clause of some kind, maybe a percentage of the revenue that you do or provide them in commissions needs to be geared towards advocacy of your businesses locally. Because
You
ultimately,
do this?
we absolutely we do.
Wow. So that what kind of company is that with?
So Scenic Stays is my vacation rental business in the market here.
And that will be a clause that's built into your agreement with whom?
with any of the distribution partners that we use. We currently use Airbnb, and they do some advocacy, not to the level that they really should, based on the revenue that they provide. But some of the large ones. This is a newer company, so we're establishing all those sort of guidelines and procedures now.
I
I don't
love
care
that.
near.
In the case of the Airbnb agreement, they agreed to committing a percentage of revenue?
No, this is a concept, Matt. This is not something we've actually
Okay, I
established.
love it because it sounds to me a lot like one of, um, I think, the greatest innovations uh, in our industry in the last decade, and that's right to rent, which as a concept is almost the exact same thing. Eric, who we were talking about earlier, part of the creation of really simply all property management softwares, all softwares underneath the Inhabit brand would commit or would offer its users the chance to commit. Is it $1 a night or
It
something
is,
like
yeah,
that?
yeah, it is, and that's
That would
actually where the concept was born. Yeah.
elaborate.
So that's where the concept was born. I absolutely love it. And that's part of what BeHome does with our dollars is that we take a percentage of what we make, and we contribute back. And I think you have that coming in from multiple angles. It gives us the funds we need to be a little more vocal.
Mm. And how are you thinking about, so that every market has its share of professionals, the people who are listening to this. They also have their fair share of the non-professionals, the people who give us a black eye. Inevitably, I think if regulation is done fairly in any destination, the professionals win. Would you agree so far?
I do. I would.
And so, how do you view the accountability, platform accountability on behalf of these OTAs, ensuring that properties that they're featuring are indeed legal and permitted within the destination? It seems to me, if we talk about confronting some of these realities, if there's one big choke point, or in this case, two or three big choke points where all the guests are coming in to stay in a short term rental in any given destination, or at least lots of the guests, that would be a pretty good place to take the toll, no?
I would think so. Yeah, and really the challenge is for local authorities to know what is a legal rental versus a non-permitted rental and the like, is that there's no good way other than knocking on doors and trying to scrub websites to look at licensing numbers and permitting, and it's something that a lot of those OTAs and platforms has pushed back on over the years, and well, in some cases they want to say, look, we're partners, and in others they want to say it's our guest, and
Right.
it's not, we're not in the rental business, we're just a marketing platform.
Exactly.
The reality is we there would not be a major, in my mind, a major problem with them adding into either the description or in some tab the license and or registration of that particular municipality, so that there was a quick and easy way to find out who is doing the right thing locally and who is not. And really, at the end of the day, everybody should be collecting and paying taxes appropriately. Everybody should be managing their rentals for trash and parking and noise and all the other ordinances that are already in place. And if we had those mechanisms to challenge those who are causing the problems, then maybe we wouldn't need additional negative legislation at any level.
Hell yeah. Lino, are you running for president or something? Because I'm about to vote for you.
No, absolutely not. I'd be a horrible politician because I have no filter and no patience for BS.
um, I want to close with a question about your personal life, your role as an entrepreneur in your family as you have grown over the years. I've been going through this exercise that entails um, almost like a brain dump, a stream of consciousness writing of everything that I've done as it relates to my work, let's say, over the last couple decades. And it's just a pure flow of things. And eventually, some of the things that I'm happy about emerge, and some of the things that I'm disappointed or frustrated by also emerge, and patterns start to emerge. And from that stream of consciousness dump, we get to a paragraph that we distill. And then we put the paragraph aside, and then we get to a sentence that distills the paragraph. And then ultimately, we get to one word that really resonates, that really puts its finger on the deep theme of this work and the areas in which I'd like to improve. And I'm curious, if you were to go through a similar kind of exercise, what word would you put on your entrepreneurial pursuits over the last couple decades uh, that you're most proud of, and what word perhaps that you want to improve?
Wow, that's a lot to digest, Matt, and nothing like putting somebody on a spot with this, right? I would say, from a work life perspective, that I am the most proud of is family. Family has been my motivation from the very beginning. I was a young father. Vic and I are actually celebrating 30 years together in April of this year, going to Europe for a couple of weeks to
Nice.
do it,
Where are
to
you
finally
going?
do it. We're going to go to Greece for 4 days. We're going to Venice for 3 days, Paris for 3 days, and then England for five. Go
Wow,
see some
that's
my old
awesome.
stomping ground. So yeah, we're excited. So I'd say family, my work family. I try to bring a culture of family into all the endeavors that I'm involved with, because I feel like people are the greatest resource of any business. And if they feel like, in fact, in most cases, they spend more time with you at work than they do with their own families at home. So my word would be family. The negative side would probably be balance, because balancing that work life sometimes, based on all of the things that we get into, is can take its toll as well. So family and balance would be my two.
Pretty impressive, Lino. That exercise took me about 3 weeks to do. So you just did it very quickly. On the balance side, how do you think now about balance? What have you learned, and then what do you think you need to change?
Well, I'm more intentional about my time off. For instance, this weekend we were down in Tampa at the zoo with my granddaughter. She's 3 years old, and I actually think I bought a real giraffe with all the stuff we had down there going on for a party. But I didn't have my cell phone on. There was no reason to turn on the cell phone. There's a lot of emails and buzzes and tweets and things that occur, but the top priority was not other things or distractions. It was granddaughter's third birthday party, and so I
Mm,
think being more intentional with that side of the balance is something that I'm learning to be better at, and not always just have to glance at your phone every time it makes an odd noise or a buzz.
mm.
Some of those things can wait.
And and did you say you think you might have bought a giraffe?
Well, I'm looking at all the expenditures from the weekend, and I'm at the zoo. I'm pretty sure I bought a giraffe.
That sounds like a pretty wild time with the kids. I'm impressed.
It was always a great time. But you can't say no, you know.
That's a giraffe. Lino, do you have any prediction for the next year or two that maybe most people don't have on their horizon? Perhaps that's sitting on the unseen fringe?
Yeah, I actually just left a strategy meeting with one of my senior staff at Scenic Stays. It's our rental company in the Panhandle here, and we talked about 2023 and beyond, and I think markets are very different one to the next. But in most drive-to markets during economic uncertainty, they tend to perform, or historically have performed, a little bit better, because people are less likely to take a more expensive vacation or get on planes for long periods of time, and so drive-to markets, I think, are going to be in pretty good shape. I think that some of the other farther out destinations or more expensive inventory, might be a little more challenging, and so I really feel like watching your bottom lines closely are going to be critically important, and then building each other up. there is such a thing as competition, but I like to use a word co-opetition, where you can bring a bunch of operators across different segments, different areas together. That's why I really love. I don't know if we had hit on this before, Matt, but you talk about the Hunter Collection, what Travis is doing, with becoming our own OTAs, where we're highlighting one another, companies from across the United States and Europe. That is, I think you're going to see more of that, because our industry is the one that holds the keys, not third party providers that we choose to use or not. So I really like what he's doing there.
Mm-hmm. And on that finance topic, would you agree that people really need to get a good grasp on their finances? Like, you can't wait any longer. This is the time to really get serious and wrap your head around stuff that you maybe never needed to learn before.
100% agree. I mean, literally, the financial picture of your business is the starting point of any decision. And again, it's part of what we just went through today. Exercise with my team is that you've got to know the impact of every decision before you make it, and not only when the revenue is going to come, if it's a business development type decision, or when the net expense is going to sort of drop your net operating income, and if you don't know where those lines intersect, you could run into some pretty significant challenges in cash flow that might make the difference whether you survive it or not.
We got to give a shout out to our homegirl, Amanda Hoffman, who's going to be hosting the first ever Keystone Retreat subject matter focus, that is finance and accounting, this coming February in Darien, Georgia. It's going to be a small retreat. Amanda is a finance whiz / nerd, self-proclaimed. Lino, you approve, right?
100%. She's an absolute rock star, and can help you put that material into layman's terms for those of us, myself included, who are not as well versed.
What a fantastic interview. Lino is a fountain of knowledge about short-term rentals, but I also think just about life in general. Lino's got a lot of it figured out. But there's also stuff Lino hasn't gotten figured out just yet. And his honesty, his authenticity in wanting to learn and change and grow is what I think makes him a most relatable leader. My big takeaway from our conversation is that making consistent your unique style of hospitality while exclusively managing vacation properties, whether it's for yourself or for other homeowners, no matter how big or small you are, making consistent your unique style of hospitality, this is the holy grail of short-term rental success. This is what makes you a home runner. If these topics resonated with you, consider investing in VRMB's 2023 Trends Report, alternatively titled My Roadmap. It's a distillation of all the observation I'm making down into basically the shortest essay document possible so that you can make better decisions moving into 2023 and beyond. It was very tempting to get sidetracked with cliche trends and clickbait headlines and extraordinary case studies. But sidetracked, the Trends Report is not. If you look back over the last several years of Trends Report, in fact, you'll notice that the ideas and the themes are not fractaling or expanding, but rather they're starting to crystallize into a beautiful vision for the future of short-term rentals. I believe it's your vision as well. You can invest in that report at brmb.com/trends. Until next time.
I feel alive, I feel alive.